Good morning, everyone. Shavua Tov. You may have seen in the news that in Iran there are protests that have broken out against the government after they shut down this airliner, and there's unrest and civil disobedience. And obviously, when you have a corrupt government, that's a good thing that the people stand up and protest. But what's the first example in the Torah of civil disobedience? It's in this week's Torah portion. Paro issues an evil decree. What was the evil decree? That all Jewish baby boys have to be thrown into the Nile River and drowned. And he instructs the Jewish midwife, Shifra and Pua, make sure that when a baby boy is born, you inform the authorities that the baby should be, God forbid, drowned in the Nile. But what does the Torah say? That the Shifra and Pua did not do what Paro said, and they disobeyed the order. On the contrary, they made sure that the Jewish babies would live. And here is the first example of civil disobedience. Laws are meant to be followed, but what's if you have a corrupt law? Then you must disobey the law. Like the Nuremberg trials. People said, well, I was following orders. There are certain orders that are illegal to follow. Why? Because there's moral laws from God that are beyond any law of any human being. So whether it's Pharaoh or Hitler or any other evil person that issues a decree, you as a human being, legally, because the Nuremberg trials proved that legally, the moral obligation to follow God's laws and the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not kill, supersede the laws of any government. And therefore, if a government is corrupt, you have to disobey it. So Shifra and Pua are the first examples of Jewish women who stood up to the law of the land, risking their own lives to disobey the law of the land of Pharaoh. However, the rabbis point out, the Lubavitch Rabbi points this out, that there was a dual command from Pharaoh, a decree. He says, drown all the baby boys in the Nile and make sure every girl should live. Now, if he only decreed that the boys should die, obviously the girls will live. So why does he have to specify in the decree, in the order, the boys should be drowned and the girls should live? Obviously, if you're only killing the boys, the girls will live. So the Lubavitch Rebbe says that we know that our enemies tried to destroy us in two different ways. One was physically, like Haman or Hitler, and then there's always been the attempt to spiritually destroy us, like communism, Stalin, illegal to be a Jew in Russia and during the times of communism, or like the story of Hanukkah, the Greeks said you can't practice Judaism. Either way, they want to eliminate us, physically or spiritually, they want us to assimilate. This was Paro's deeper decree. Murder all the baby boys. Then the Jewish girls will grow up. Make sure they live. You know why? Because when the girls grow up, they're not going to have any Jewish men to marry because all the boys were drowned. So who are they going to marry? Egyptian men. And then they'll assimilate and will wipe out the Jewish people by forcing the Jewish girls to marry Egyptian men. And that's why Paro says, drown the boys and make sure the girls live, so we could spiritually make sure that these girls marry Egyptian men and assimilate. And this is what we have to be aware of, though. When the Jewish midwives made sure that the boys will live, they were not only securing the physical Jewish future, but the spiritual Jewish future. They were making sure there'll be Jewish marriages between Jewish boys and Jewish girls, so Jewish nationhood and peoplehood and the Jewish people can continue to live on. There is a story. There was a rabbi in Israel many years ago. He passed away a number of years ago. His name is Rabbi Scheiner. When he got old, he was 90 years old, his doctor said, you need to start doing some physical therapy. Because he was a rabbi, learned all day, he spoke to people gave advice to people, blessings. So he started every morning, after he would go learn early in the morning, he would go pray, he would come do physical therapy. And his physical therapist one day said to him, did you eat breakfast yet? He says, no, I don't eat till a little later. He says, you know, it's not good for your health to push off breakfast. You should eat first thing in the morning, right after prayers. Go eat before physical therapy. He says, no, I can't eat now. He didn't tell him a reason. One day while he was doing physical therapy, there was a knock on the door. A rabbi came to see him about a pressing matter. He stopped the physical therapy to talk to this rabbi. And before the rabbi left, the physical therapist went over to the rabbi who visited the Rabbi Stein and said, I see you have a close relationship with him. I've been asking him to pray, to eat before in the morning, not push off his breakfast. It's not good for him to wait so long to eat breakfast. He insists he can't. Maybe you can convince him. So the rabbi said, I'll try. I went over to Rabbi Steinman and he said, why don't you eat breakfast? Why do you wait till later? So Rabbi Steinman said to me, I'll tell you why. He said every morning between 8 and 9, which is the time of the physical therapy, he says tens of thousands of children in Israel are going to yeshiva. This is the time kids go learn Torah. And he said, God is so happy. He's seeing his Yiddish Kindlach going to get a Jewish education, learning about their heritage, how to come closer to God, gives God great pleasure. But at the same time that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jewish children are going to get a Jewish education between 8 and 9, there's twice or 3 times as many that are going to the public schools, where they're going to get no Jewish education. They're not going to learn about Hashem. They're not going to learn about Torah mitzvahs. He says, could you imagine how much pain it gives God to see all these beautiful children who are going and they're not going to have any connection, any relationship with the Torah, with their ancestors, with their heritage? He said, it's such an arrow and God is having so much pain. How can I enjoy myself and eat breakfast? So I don't eat breakfast, to be sensitive to the fact that they're Jewish children that are assimilating. And this is the message of the civil disobedience, that we have to make sure that not only we keep the Jewish children alive physically, but spiritually. And someone said something very beautiful recently. They said, if you see a Jewish cemetery in a community, you know that there once was a Jewish presence in this town. If you see a synagogue in a community, you know that there is currently a Jewish presence in this town. But if you see a Jewish school, then you know that there will be in the future a Jewish community in this town. And that's what Jewish education is all about. So just about now, 100 kids will come into our building, as they do every Sunday, to learn. So it's our obligation to make sure that every Jewish child gets a Jewish education. And as parents, as grandparents, that's the most important thing, to make sure that they carry on the lineage and the heritage of our ancestors so they could be proud and knowledgeable Jews for the future.